My name is Sarah Derat. I'm a visual artist and my work is at the intersection of digital technology and sculpture. I chose to come to the UK because I think I needed to be out of my comfort zone. I really love this place. It's probably my favourite studio I've ever had because it's very raw and rough somehow. It's very industrial and I've always enjoyed working in industrial spaces. It took me a while to decide if I wanted to become an archaeologist or an artist. I just felt really frustrated by not being allowed to touch things. I think that's why I decided, okay, I need to make my own stuff.
Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Hey, how are you? Good, and you?
So Sarah, in your art practice, you are exploring mythology and technology, which for me are quite opposite.
Mythology is a way to understand or read the world, and especially things that we don't necessarily fully grasp. And technology these days, and the systems and the mechanism behind technology are very much kept obscured. And in that sense, I think mythology is an interesting tool to potentially have a reading of technology.
So you kind of see technology as the mythology of our time. Because mythology is also for me very much about God. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if technology has become our new God.
Well, there's definitely a correlation in the language of people developing such technology in Silicon Valley. There's definitely a religious sort of lexicon in terms of language. But I guess, we put in mythology the things that we want to fully grasp, but somehow we do the same thing with technology. If you think about tech these days and the way data is mined or the way artificial intelligence systems are built, there's a huge black box here. We're not aware of the mechanisms and the systems. We're lacking of literacy, I guess. There's a lot that we need to still comprehend, and mythology had this role in the past in trying to give a reading.
So we are talking about automation and life, automation and art. Do you think the evolution of artificial intelligence means that we are losing control as a society? And if we go further, does it mean that you are losing control as an artist?
I don't think I'm losing control as an artist. I think this is the way I perceived and I always approached art before I became an artist, is that it's just a way. It's like maybe a light that guides you through thinking about things that, that you would not necessarily think about. The show She Who Loves Silence tries to explore automation and artificial intelligence and their impact of such technology on the brain architecture, language, and the social fabric, and the way we connect to each other. And I'm trying to approach this subject through the lens of archaeology and anthropology.
I mean, you're using language, but then you've titled the show She Who Loves Silence.
She Who Loves Silence is actually the name of an ancient Egyptian goddess called Meret-Seger, and her name translates as She Who Loves Silence. She was the goddess feared and worshipped by the tomb makers of the Valley of the Kings.
I really like to talk about this title because it's very much antithetic. Mm-hmm. In your show there is a lot of sound, there is a lot of language, words that are appearing, and then you titled it with silence.
Yeah, because the voices that we hear in the show are voices produced through either artificial intelligence or chatbots, or it's something that is very generative, that is trying to attempt at being human but isn't quite. So I liked the idea of having the human voice or voices to be quite silenced, but instead giving speech and the capacity of speech to machines.
Another striking element is when we look at the iconography of your works in that room, I see hands everywhere, basically. Yeah. And this is where it also pushes us to want to touch, So what about this iconography?
The iconography of the show is a lot about this first idea, which is what ignited the research, which is the connection between tool making and language, and how neuroscientists and paleoanthropologists have proven the fact that there's a connection between actually making things and communicating, meaning that tool making activates similar neural areas than language and communication. So that's why there's a lot of hands in this show.
Sarah, your works are a lot about language, but I believe they are also about materiality. So can we now look at one of your pieces from close and look at its sensory element?
This piece is called Seasonal Love. It's part of a diptych, actually. We've got another piece with slightly different color, with the text being mirrored. It's the first piece that I produced in silicone.
It's exactly the color of skin.
Yeah.
And it's actually, it feels like skin as well.
The tactility of it is really important.
This one is called Modern Disturbance.
That's right.
Can you please tell me how you made it?
This piece is cast rubber, so everything that I do in silicone rubber is cast. It's starting from liquid rubber. And you got a metal structure, so kind of in the back of the piece, but I always sort of like mix both materials, like, you know, having metal and rubber together.
And how did it change the making process from going to small pieces to larger pieces?
Oh, wow. This piece took about a year to make, just to solve all those problems, because the technique that I'm using is pretty much something that I've developed myself. It's really between mold making and print making as well. Modern Disturbance somehow is like the transitional piece before Castor Project and before She Who Loves Silence. The drawing is basically an archaeological drawing. So it's a plague pit from the Middle Ages, for the 14th century. And Modern Disturbance is actually part of the actual drawing made by the archaeologists. But out of context, when I saw this image, I was very like, you know, fascinated by it, because the bodies somehow look like they're floating. There's something like
ghosty about it.
Yeah, they're very ghosty, right?